It almost makes sense that these two teams are back-to-back in our schedule rankings. Mark Rogers TV rating all the schedules in college football. And we rank them 68 all the way up to number 1. That's all the Power 5 plus the major independents. There are 4 of them. We just checked out the Buckeye slate, which ranks number 37 in the nation. The team up north, number 36 in the country. So for those Michigan fans out there, you would love for the actual football rankings to reflect this in about 4 months and move up about 35 spots. Number 1, number 2. I'm sure that would work out at the conclusion of the season for you. So Michigan doesn't have to play themselves in one of the toughest divisions in college football. I think it's close between the SEC West and the Big Ten East. But if you're Rutgers, for example, you've got to play all the big boys, or you're Indiana or Maryland. If you're Michigan, you don't have to play yourself. So that makes it a little bit easier of a schedule than it is for the teams I just mentioned. Big factor in this is who you do not have to play, or who do you play in the other division. Not so much in the Big Ten because the Western Division is so balanced. Minnesota, Northwestern, Nebraska, Wisconsin, to a lesser extent. You can throw a blanket over these teams. Iowa as well. But it is important who you do and do not play. So for Michigan, they, of course, had to travel to Iowa last year and got tripped up. No Hawkeyes this year, no Nebraska, no Northwestern, no Illinois. So they miss one of the cupcakes, but they miss 3 decent football teams. They do have to play Wisconsin again, back-to-back years, and this time they've got to travel to Madison before taking on Ohio State. So that's a difficult stretch for sure, the most difficult you can find in the Big Ten when you have to face an Eastern power and a Western power, Ohio State, Wisconsin, back-to-back. Michigan, of course, starts the season by taking on Florida, neutral site game in Arlington, Texas, top 15 team in the country. So very difficult non-conference game, neutral site. Cincinnati Air Force are not pushovers, not the second Power 5 team that a lot of teams that we see across the country now scheduling a second Power 5 opponent. So Michigan doesn't have to face that, but 2 decent opponents, no pushovers, Cincinnati Air Force in weeks 2 and 3 at the Big House. Okay, so we mentioned who they don't have to play in the Western Division, Nebraska, Iowa, Northwestern, Illinois, but they've got the date, yes, against Wisconsin. Earlier in the season, of course, the grudge match against Minnesota. That's their common non-division rivalry. It's Minnesota, and they play Purdue as well in the Western Division. Okay, that's how it sizes up for Michigan. It's the 4th most difficult schedule in the Big Ten. It's number 36 in college football. It belongs to the Wolverines, and they've got the difficult games spread out. So that pushed the schedule back in the rankings a bit. So no difficult 4 or 5 game stretches. Michigan's state is spaced out. Penn State is by itself with Indiana and Rutgers on either side. Florida, the opener, of course, but then they've got the 2 reasonable games against Cincinnati and Air Force at home. Wisconsin, Ohio State. That's the 2-game gauntlet at the end to probably prove that Michigan needs to overcome that challenge to get to a Big Ten championship game. All right, number 4 in difficulty, number 36 in the nation for Michigan. Let's discuss it right here on Mark Rogers TV.